right now. Brad Smith here with the birthday girl, Seana Smith, hanging around with us, listening in to Costco's earnings call. Seana, we just got off this Costco earnings call, and the stock has come through dipping. It came through dipping, dip, to paraphrase Cardi B there. I'll pull up the after hours chart here for our viewers. I've actually got a heat map of our retail sector on the Wi-Fi interactive here, and you're taking a look at it there on your screen as well. Actually, you got the major averages there on your screen, but I'm taking a look at the heat map here on the New York Touch One, and Costco as of right now. We're taking a look at Costco down on my screen, and we're going to get that situated for you folks who are viewing as well. Down by 3% here in extended hours, and particularly one thing that we are going to continue to watch here going forward is the fact that this reaction is not totally off of what was talked about on the call. It was more so on what was actually announced in the second quarter results. I mean, EPS, that beat. However, it's the sales that actually missed here, Seana.
Yeah, certainly. It was a disappointing report, I think you can say. At least that's how the street is interpreting it. Some of my key takeaways, though, from this call, things that we wanted to hear was in terms of improvement on inflation. There were signs of inflation slowing here. That inflation word was mentioned more than 30 times on this call, really pointing to the fact that so many people were really focused on the pricing and what we're seeing there. Also, more people are buying Kirkland because of those higher prices. Now, Kirkland, if you don't know, it's their in-house brand. It's very, very popular, but they were saying that they saw a little bit over 1.5% increase in sales penetration on the food side of Kirkland, asking whether or not that's a trade down. They were saying, the executives there, Richard Galanti, saying that he actually views it as a trade up here, but more people certainly favoring that in-house brand, and also just the higher penetration on executive memberships. And we'll talk about memberships and fees and everything like that in just a couple of minutes here. But the higher penetration on executive memberships, they were saying that that is only good stuff here because that group, they're more loyal, they spend more, they come more frequently, and that's exactly what Costco wants to see, especially at a time like this when there is so much uncertainty and some consumers are pulling back on spending because of those higher prices.
Yeah, that's spot on. And I'm glad you brought up Kirkland because I had talked about this even as we were teasing this week's After the Call show and that strength of the Kirkland brand. And here's how they position Kirkland. They talk about it not as a trade down, but instead as a trade up or a trade equal among their consumers there. So they're seeing more trade into Kirkland than usual. They did note that on the call, gives us a little bit of the sense in what they're seeing in their members and their consumers right now. And it kind of mirrored the tenor that we heard from a company in Walmart, their competitor on the Sam's Club front or the buying in bulk front. Walmart said on their earnings call, look, if the economy is strong, our customers have more money. That's great. If things are tougher, they come to us for value. Today's inflation, they're continuing to see that to happen. I imagine similarly at Costco, given what we had heard on the call, thinking about some of the takeaways that I took out of this. Number one, with what we just heard from both of those companies and how they're describing the consumer environment right now, Richard, the CFO, my goodness, this guy is unfazed, ladies and gentlemen. Richard Galanti, he's been with the company since 1984. Where were you when? I was nowhere. So at the end of the day, Richard unfazed, I think that's a good, steady hand that we're continuing to hear. And even as they're thinking through what an economic downturn might look like, ensuring the investor community, ensuring customers that what they're going to continue to do is improve the value by lowering the price, and that's going to drive more sales. So we heard Richard talk about that. We also heard analysts ask about the margin stability, and they kind of appreciated. They gave it a nod to that. And so that was a positive check mark as well. And then the management of inventory here, key. And I wrote down one note. The inventory reduction year over year was a byproduct of the flow being better there. Richard also saying that we feel good about the inventory levels by category. I will give them one knock on the digital strategy front. I think we still need to hear more from them on that. However, they do have a new head of digital that they discussed on the call. We'll see what more comes over the next few months as that strategy continues to really come to fruition here. But they can't drag their feet too much on that front as well, we do know, because some of their competitors in this buying in bulk or wholesale category, my goodness, they are absolutely crushing it with that digital disruption and digital conversion, I say, or transformation. That's the buzzy marketing term out there, the digital transformation that everybody's been talking about for years. So those are some of the key takeaways from this call. But we got to play a clip from this call too, Seana, because they started to talk about pricing. And as we were talking about even value by lowering the price going to drive more sales, it's been viral before how much they've talked about competing on the chicken price. Listen to this from the call.
If you go do a little homework on what the cost of processing and selling a rotisserie chicken, our $4.99 price is which we maintain is an investment in low prices to drive membership, to drive sales in a big way. So there's some things that we do, notwithstanding huge inflation.
Now, I don't know if you remember those viral TikTok videos from a couple years ago when everybody was just talking about, why Costco keeps the prices on the chicken low. It's to get you in the store for the chicken and make you walk by all of the jeans, make you walk by all of these other discretionary purchases and parts of the store just to get you to the low price chicken, knowing they'll take the hit on the chicken. They just want to make sure that you get a bunch of other things on the way and load up the cart, Seana.
Yeah, well, it certainly seems to be working. I mean, that is a price point that you obviously cannot beat. $4.99 for a rotisserie chicken. That is enough to get me through the doors. And I think a lot of people into that store, when you take a look at the total revenue for Costco, clearly initiatives, that type of strategy is working because yes, that growth is slowing, but they are still seeing growth. The sales growth for the most recent quarter up 6.5%, just above 55 billion. So certainly some of their strategies here are proving to work. And even in this environment, I want to go back to one thing that I mentioned earlier, and that's inflation. Demand certainly has been weakening. We have seen it from a number of their competitors in terms of what people are buying, and more specifically, what they're not buying. They're passing on some of those big ticket items like electronics, like jewelry, some of the clothing options, just in a few. We heard that on the earnings call with Costco. We also heard it from a number of other larger retailers over the last couple of weeks when it comes to Target, when it comes to Walmart, just to name a few there. But there was some good news, though, in terms of the fact that inflation may be easing on some products there because they are starting to maybe pass that along to the consumer. And one analyst did ask Richard about that because the fact that they did cite some of those lower inflation numbers than what some of their competitors are experiencing. So those price gaps are starting to widen. And in response to that, Costco CFO Richard Galanti said that it's an art, not a science, when you're trying to figure out what exactly to mark down. And they're looking at items where they can make a big difference fast, those high velocity items. And I think that makes all the difference in the world, especially when you're talking about selling certainly necessities, but also trying to sell as many discretionary items as you can in this very, very tough environment. So I think a lot of the key points when it comes to this call is it wasn't a great call, but it wasn't necessarily as bad as I think many on the street maybe had been fearing at some points.
Okay, all right. So that gives me a little bit of the insight into what your vibe check might be, Seana.
I give it away a little bit.
Yeah, lay it on me. What do you got?
It was tough. I have a little issue. I think we need a little bit more just in terms of our what we're able to choose from. But I went with bad because I didn't think it was solid enough to go with good. I was trying to negotiate for somewhere in between an okay, a fair type of rating. But I went with bad because I think there's a lot of areas that were on this call that Costco clearly needs to improve in terms of some of their growth numbers. The drop that we certainly saw in e-commerce, a little bit worrisome as we look ahead to the future and what that might mean in terms of losing some of that market share to the competitors that are able to post stronger gains in terms of their digital business. But like you said before, there's a new person there, a new executive that's leading that division, the digital division. To me, that's somewhere that we could expect to see some growth in a couple of months because he's only been there, less than 6 months at this point.
Yeah. So I was similar in where I wanted to place my vibe check, but I guess I leaned to the opposite end because I did give them a little bit more credit on some of the initiatives that they're trying to move forward with. And yeah, okay, I put them in the good category. This is, for our viewers, this is not a Yahoo Finance 2022 Company of the Year bias. This is not me being a fan of the free samples bias at all for Costco. This is not even me being a fan of the Kirkland golf balls type of bias out there. This is purely about what that expansion may look like and how that can contribute to them being profitable. You think about the storefront footage that they are, the footprint rather, that they operate right now, 848 warehouses. They're expanding more internationally. And here's what's the key about that. international as a percent of sales is more profitable for this business. And so as they continue to move into more territories, especially in the Eastern Hemisphere, that's where we could see even more of a propensity from some of those shoppers, and the profitability on that shopping experience really be a boon to not just the growth strategy financially, but also as a brand equity and broader type of expansion mechanism for Costco here. So that was one thing that I kind of really keyed into, in addition to some of the key takeaways that we had already discussed. And we talked about apparel. I mean, I'm standing in the apparel aisle here at Costco.
I love the background. I was going to say, you're really showing me up here with that.
You know, they've got the jeans. They're bidding more into the jeans here. They've got apparel strength, and getting more of those well-known inventories out there. That's what they said is also key to doing better in that particular category as well, Seana.
It certainly will be, and a area of the business that we need to focus on here going forward. But let's talk a little bit more about membership fees. We know that is something that many people were waiting for, were listening for in this earnings call. Allie Canal closely watching that. And Allie, it's been just over 5 years since the last hike in fees. What did we learn?
Yes. So basically, we know that membership growth at Costco, it's remains strong. Membership fees brought in $1.03 billion in the quarter. That's up 6.2% from the year ago period. But the big question on analysts, investors' minds is, will they hike up those fees? And Costco basically is saying yes, but not yet. Executives on the call said it's a question of when, not if, but that Costco, no matter what happens, will continue to remain incredibly competitive. Now, you said that Costco hasn't raised fees in about almost 6 years now, and they tend to increase their fees every 5.5 years, which means we are really due for one at this moment. The last price hike happened in June of 2017, but analysts have said that due to the weak macro environment, coupled with those strong same-store sales, renewal rates, that the delay in those fee hikes, that's not really that surprising. And if we compare the current Costco membership to other wholesale retailers, you have the Costco Gold Star membership, which costs $60 per year, and an executive membership goes for $120 per year. And that's significantly higher from competitors like Sam's Club, that's owned by Walmart. They raised prices in August for the first time since 1999, increasing its annual fees to $50 from $45 for club members, and to $110 from $100 for plus members. And then BJ's, those basic membership fees cost $55 per year, with its Perk Rewards membership at $110. So Costco, significantly more, but again, the retail giant really emphasizing the fact that they have the best value and they are the most competitive.
All right, Allie, while we got you, we got to talk about what the word on the street is, and both streets, Wall Street and Main Street. What are you seeing right now in the social sphere?
Yeah, Brad, let's get to this reaction from Main Street on Twitter. A lot of chatter in the Twitterverse when it comes to food, but I had to throw one in here on inflation. One user writing, quote, "I love and hate Costco, but did I really just have to spend $400 on groceries right now? We know the consumer's pinched. We know the prices of basic products are ticking higher, but groceries, food, they're considered essential items, and consumers are still spending money there. I also think it's very easy at Costco to sort of get lost in the aisles and probably spend more than you intended to." But to round us out, the final two tweets are just focused on food. Costco food seems to be unmatched, according to Twitter. This user writing, Costco for $1.50 hot dogs with refillable soda pop and a huge ice cream swirl for $1.89. We all love that $1.50 hot dog, myself included, so I had to give that a shout out. But apparently, as I'm learning, that's not the only staple, because this third user wrote, "I've had what's considered the best pizza in the country, and Costco pizza still hits different." I mean, guys, I wish I could have included all of the food talk on Twitter, but it's clear that Costco is a foodie's playground, that you have the samples, you have the really good staple products that people love. And I think that's a big part of why people love being Costco members.
All right, so that's what we're going to be set to see next time we go to Costco. It's going to be all the food influencers. They're going to be walking around in their New Balance sneakers, right? Just taking selfies, making the little TikTok videos, doing the dance. That's what's going to be happening, is what you're telling me, Allie Canal.
Basically, yes. And
okay.
I want to be in on it. We're all going. Group trip to Costco
Done.
for the
I would love it. And I wish we had some of that food with us right now.
Yes.
Next time, for the next after the call for Costco.
Exactly. All right, Allie, thanks so much. Seana, we got to get to our final takes here on the day. after we just listened to everything that they had to say on the call, I mean, my final take still is so much focus around the not just confidence in steering this business right now through what an economic downturn may look like, and what we had heard from the executive team. We were showing a quote earlier, just talking about how they would remain resilient, and it is on the back of just improving the value, like lowering the price, going to drive more sales that way, and that being the intention. But then additionally here, you just think about in this economic downturn, them even acknowledging that, yeah, this one's different. I think that was some transparency and them understanding that they might have to do a little bit more than they did during the pandemic and early days when they saw people flock to buy $400 worth of groceries and just load up on that or get all of the toilet paper or paper towels that they could. But they're saying that they're fortunate that they've got various types of businesses within their business. We'll see if that holds true.
Yeah, it certainly gives them a little bit of a hedge or a little bit more wiggle room, especially during the in the midst of the spending pattern that we are currently seeing there. My big takeaway, and I think where I'll leave it, is that yes, Costco is positioned well. I think especially when you compare Costco to some of its peers out there, their ability, they're able to navigate some of these pricing wars a little bit better than others out there. I think a lot of people on the street, a lot of the analysts tend to agree with that, just in terms of what Costco is able to do, some of the hits that they're able to take on certain products, on certain items. You can't necessarily say that for many of the other larger retailers out there. What also stuck out to me was the supply chain improvements. They said that they're seeing that across the board. We know that is so critical when it comes to inventory levels. That is a number that the street has been extremely focused on over the last couple of quarters. So supply chain improvements, they're seeing it across the board. They're in good shape right now with inventory levels, which sets them up to probably be able to get past the rocky couple of months that we'll likely see, possibly unscathed. I don't know.
All right. Well, you see plenty of inventory behind me here in this Costco store. I'm just kidding, folks. Wink, wink. At the end of the day, you've been watching After the Call on Yahoo Finance Live. We've been bringing you all of the coverage of Costco as they just wrapped up their earnings call. From Brad Smith, Seana Smith, as well as Allie Canal and the rest of the crew. Thanks for tuning in. Good night. We'll see you tomorrow morning, bright and early.